In this video, I'm going to be talking about two of the main reasons that I feel most people don't make sales on KDP and what you can do about it. Hi, my name is Nat and I create videos and tutorials around online business and Amazon KDP. If that's something that interests you, then please do subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos like this. When it comes to not making sales on KDP, I feel that it boils down to one of two reasons and often a combination of both. And I feel that people sometimes overly complicate the idea of keywords and they feel that this is the kind of key to them being a success on KDP. Okay, so the first reason that I see that people probably struggle to get their initial sales just boils down to the design of their book. So often the design of the books that people show me are either too generic or too amateurish, or for want of a better word, a bit too boring. And that is the main issue, I think. I think that sometimes people don't perhaps realize that their design isn't as good as they think that it is. We're often not the best judges of our own work. I know that I'm not a designer, but I have learned a lot, and I also had been doing some basic design as far as creating blog graphics and Pinterest graphics for several years before I went on to KDP. But still, the books that I created initially were pretty bad as far as design goes, really, and I improved on that over time. And that's just something that happens through trial and error and really trying to improve. So I think it's probably best to ask someone you trust for an honest opinion about your design, or if you're really very brave, to go onto one of the Facebook groups, which often have the option of sharing your design. Some of the Facebook group leaders sometimes do a critique of certain people's books. The problem with sometimes sharing your book design in the Facebook groups is a couple of reasons. One, if it is actually very good, then the chances are people are going to steal your idea. But if your design isn't the best, then people really will tell you that that is the case. And people can be quite brutal about it, but actually this could be the best thing because you will really learn what exactly is wrong with your design and how to improve it. And much of the time it's going to be down to learning those design skills that you need to know, and that's through learning the basic fundamentals of design, which you can do by, for example, looking at YouTube videos. There's plenty of YouTube tutorials on design, and there are many different programs that you could learn. So I personally learned Canva because it was one of the simplest. So this is Canva here, and you can start Canva for free. I'll leave a link in the description so you can try it out for yourself. You can get a free trial as well. Canva is very easy, and it's something that I had experience with for several years, and that's why I continued with it. I also did learn Affinity Publisher and Affinity Design, but because I was so used to Canva, that's where I really am comfortable, even though I do still use Affinity Publisher sometimes. But you can do various things, whereas you can go for Affinity Publisher or Design, but then there are things like, of course, InDesign, Photoshop, and other free programs as well, such as Inkscape or GIMP. And all these programs have plenty of different tutorials that you can go and see on YouTube. So my point here that I want to kind of drive home is if you don't have any design skills at all, then the chances of you creating a good cover that's going to be appealing to people is going to be quite slim. Learn the skills that you need over time, or perhaps hire someone else to create the covers, but then that is going to be an added cost that's going to add up for you over time. So the second main thing I see is people going into really competitive areas and not niching down. So they're going to something incredibly broad, such as a planner for women or something like that. But then there's nothing else that makes that book unique. So maybe it's just, a certain color or has a flowery pattern or a star pattern or something like that. Whereas you need to appeal to someone on a different level than that. It has to be, maybe it's a planner but for a certain profession or for someone who's into a certain sport, or it's maybe solving a problem that they have of some capacity, or it's just really funny in some way. Perhaps it has a funny quote or something like that that people are actually searching for on Amazon and that isn't trademarked, which is another issue you need to double check on. So as well as going into a broad niche, which you don't want to do, the idea is to niche down within the broader area, maybe even combining two niches in one, which I've had some success with. Although I do sometimes join a competitive niche, I only do so when I feel that my book can compete with the others that are there and that I can offer something unique, so something that is different to what is already there. I would use ads to gain some visibility on Amazon and get those initial sales. Again, that's not something that I would recommend for beginners. So I would always recommend niching down and going into that less competitive area and getting those sales first of all. Because the thing is, if you start ranking for lower competition keywords, then gradually, as long as you use a combination of lower, middle, and higher keywords, you can gradually start ranking for those higher keywords once you have those sales. So you may end up ranking for some of those really competitive keywords as well, but only once you've ranked for the lower competition ones first, if that makes sense. Although there are various reasons why you may not be making sales, I think 90% of the time this is the main problem. I think that design is the number one issue that people have, and then also just going into a really competitive area as well. But there are some other issues. So one is not having a very specific customer in mind. And this kind of ties up with going into a broad niche, I would guess. So you need to kind of have a customer in mind that is going to be purchasing your book. So you might want to think about how old they are, what gender they are, what their interests are, maybe what their problems are that you want to solve, what kind of style they're into, maybe what kind of music they're into. And also not just giving up after you've put out one book in a particular niche. I generally may make several books in a niche, but I will do them all completely differently. So there'll be a completely different style. Each book is a different style and targeting a different type of customer within that audience, and also different styles. And the reason why I do that is because often you'll find that one particular style of book starts to take off and make sales while the others don't. This has happened to me time and time again. I can't tell you how often this happens. In fact, I think it's happened every single time that I've put books out in a niche, that usually you'll get one or maybe several that do take off and others won't make any sales at all. And it can be a bit confusing as to why sometimes, because you might think that a particular design actually is far better than the others. But it is what it is, and that's just the way this is what happens on Amazon. So I do recommend putting out several different books in the same niche. Do not put out the same cover but with a slightly different color or something like that and then have the same interior. That's not what I mean. I mean literally completely different covers targeting a completely different subset of that audience in a different style and also a different interior. So another really big problem I see sometimes is spelling and grammar issues. And this can be particularly more of a problem for people whose English isn't their first language. I spoke to someone a while back who had actually put a joke on the front of the cover in English, but it was translated from another language. And the joke, while it was funny and made sense in their language, it did not make sense in ours. So it was just something that just did not make sense whatsoever in our language. And that's a real thing to be wary of. So I would say if you're translating from your own language into English, to try and get a native English speaker to translate for you. And the same vice versa if you're, for example, translating your book into German or another language, for example, then I would get a native speaker to make sure that everything that you're doing on there is accurate, because obviously it'd be quite easy to just do something just slightly wrong, and as a result your book just doesn't make sense. Another problem is, as well as going too broad in a niche, you may actually go into a niche that's too niche and where there is no market. I've actually done this myself to a point. Sometimes I've created books in micro niches where the audience is very, very small. But occasionally, even like this Q4, I've had some odd sales of some of these books, even though the covers were ones that I did right when I started and just weren't very good. But because the niche was like a micro niche, not many people actually went into it or created designs. So as a result, I still get sales now and again. So I guess sometimes it can be worth going into micro niches. And perhaps if I had some better designs in those niches, I would have been making more sales too. But there are times where there just isn't the market there at all, and you may make next to no sales. So, lastly, of course, keywords do matter. And if you're not making the most out of your keyword slots and really filling in all the relevant keywords that you need, then you may not be giving your best chance to get your book visible in the first place on Amazon. And that can be quite difficult. Again, if English isn't your first language, to really come up with all the ideas that are going to be related to your particular niche. Another thing is, I think that some people actually put in too many keywords, really kind of keywords that may not be relevant. You want to only include keywords that are extremely relevant to your book. I do think, however, that people do sometimes overthink it. I will leave a link below to a blog post that I've written about keyword research, and hopefully that can help you. And I've also left a link to how I personally fill in my keyword slots, and I will create a video about this in the future as well. So I think I've outlined the main reasons why you might not be making sales on KDP. Let me know in the comments if you think I've left anything out specifically. But like I said, those first two at the beginning are really the main reasons that I think that people don't make sales. And the reason I say that is directly from people showing me their books when they feel that they've got a problem, and specifically when they feel they've got a problem with keywords. And as I said, I think the initial problem isn't with keywords. So that's all for today. I just wanted to let you know I do also have a free mini course, which is for beginners, and it's just showing you how to get started on Amazon KDP and creating your first low content book. So please do stick around and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this and if you found this helpful. And I really do appreciate it. Take care.